Hey guys, tonight we drift back to a time so old, even dirt was brand new, at least to you. You're barefoot, half naked, carrying a sharpened stick and a vague idea of shelter. You've just moved your clan next to a swamp. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Plenty of water, shade, frogs you can club without too much drama. But the moment your feet hit the spongy edge of the marsh, something feels off. There's a heavy, wet stillness here. The kind that presses against your ears and makes your skin crawl. Mosquitoes are already doing aerial stunts around your face. Something splashes in the distance, something big. And that green, slimy patch of ground ahead? That's not land. That's just moss pretending to be land. And if you step on it, you'll find yourself chest deep in mud, bargaining with invisible spirits for your life. Still, this is your new home. You unpack. By which I mean, you drop the bundle of sticks and bones you've been carrying for 4 days and start poking around for a good place to sleep. Your cousins go upstream looking for turtles. Your aunt lays down flat on a warm rock, already claiming it like a cat. You start building. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You don't know this yet, but you've made a terrible mistake. First, the ground squelches when you walk. That's never good. You try to set up your lean-to against a curved log, only to realize the log is actually an ancient crocodile sunbathing with the patience of a saint and the teeth of a nightmare. You relocate. The next spot seems dry enough, until nightfall, when the dew settles in like a wet blanket from the sky. Everything glistens, and not in the romantic way. Your fire sputters out 3 times in a row. Wood doesn't like to burn when it's soaked in swamp breath. You toss and turn on your damp pile of grass and reeds. You hear frogs, then insects, then the other sound. Something long and low, almost like a groan. But it travels across the surface of the water, winding between the reeds like a whisper that knows your name. You sit up and look, but the darkness swallows everything outside the firelight. Still, you stay. You tell yourself, this is better than the cliff cave. No wind, no falling rocks. You'll adjust. You're adaptable. That's your whole species thing, right? Homo sapiens, the ones who make do. Morning comes with a fog that makes it hard to tell whether the sun is rising or if the swamp itself is breathing. You stumble out toward the water, hoping to wash your face, and step directly into a patch of mud that yanks your foot in like it's got an appetite. You almost lose your balance, but manage to pull yourself out with a satisfying squelch. You're now 1 slipper short of being a swamp wizard. Your foot smells like fermented frog tears. Still, you press on. You explore the nearby terrain. It's lush, sure, berries, insects, birds with brilliant feathers and bad attitudes. You even spot a baby deer, and then realize it's not alone. Its mother stands frozen nearby, staring into the reeds, ears twitching. Something is watching them, and now something is watching you. You pretend not to notice. You're a modern thinker, by 14,000 BCE standards anyway. You whistle a made-up tune, keep walking, but from that moment on, you never quite shake the feeling that the swamp is paying attention. That night, a small victory. Fire stays lit. You manage to dry out some of your bedding, and your cousins return with a few half-dead fish and 1 incredibly angry frog the size of your head. You cook, you chew, you pretend not to care that the frog blinks as it roasts. Someone tells a story about a nearby tribe who once vanished into a bog, their footprints swallowed mid-step. Someone else claims the reeds sometimes whisper secrets. You all laugh, but it sounds nervous. The frog is still blinking. You wake up to an itch, then 2, then 10. Your arms are a battlefield. Mosquitoes have found you. Not the lazy ones from the dry grasslands. These are swamp-born nightmares. Their bites swell into little mountains that throb with rage. You rub mud on them. Doesn't help. You try scratching with a stick. Also doesn't help. Finally, you just lie still and let the bugs feast. They're starting to get philosophical about it. Ancient tribes in regions like Mesopotamia actually used aromatic herbs and even burned cow dung to repel insects. Not that you know this, you just find a smoldering clump of bark and wave it around like a sad wizard trying to cast no itch. By day 4, the swamp starts giving gifts. Mushrooms, glimmering stones, a tortoise who seems to enjoy your company. But for every gift, there's a price. One cousin slips on algae and cuts his leg open. Another gets a leech on her eyelid. You find your best tool, a chipped obsidian blade, corroding slightly after you leave it out on a damp rock. Even the air feels sticky, like it's trying to glue you in place. You make adjustments. You raise your sleeping platform on rocks. You wrap your tools in tree bark. You even start talking to the swamp, half jokingly. "Thanks for the mushrooms, jerk," you mutter, tossing a soggy one onto the fire. That night, the low groaning sound returns. But now it's closer. This time it has a rhythm. 2 groans, a pause, then a splash, then silence. Your fire crackles. Everyone hears it. No one says a word. Historians still argue whether early humans believed spirits lived in natural features like rivers, trees, and swamps, or if that's just our modern imagination superimposing religion onto fear. All you know is when something groans from the water and it sounds deliberate, your instincts start screaming, "Run." But you don't. You're committed now. You've built things. You've claimed your patch of mossy misery. One of your cousins, clearly trying to lift the mood, shouts, "Probably just a frog with a stomachache." Another mutters, "Biggest frog I ever heard." The rest of the night passes in stiff silence. Next morning, no one mentions the sound. That's the unspoken rule now. Instead, you plan improvements. A better shelter. Some kind of barrier against whatever's in the water. Maybe even a raised platform for sleeping. A proto-hammock, if you will. You're making progress. Slowly. Muddily. But deep down, you're beginning to realize you're not adapting to the swamp. It's adapting you. The lean-to collapses before breakfast. You're chewing on something rooty, staring at the mess of damp branches and slippery reeds that used to be your home, and you think, maybe this isn't the worst way to start the day. After all, it didn't fall on you. That counts as a win in swamp math. You rebuild with less optimism and more sticks. You weave vines tighter, pile more rocks on the base, elevate the sleeping layer just slightly more this time. You even try lining the roof with wide, waxy leaves. It helps for one night. Then the leaves get soggy, sag, and start dripping, one fat drop at a time, directly onto your forehead. You don't sleep so much as you marinate. You try to fix the floor next. Swamp ground is tricky. It looks solid until it decides it's not. So you lay logs across the mud to create a platform. It's uneven, sure, and one of them bounces ominously when you step on it, but it's better than waking up half submerged in squelch. By now, you're starting to understand that your fight isn't against beasts or hunger, it's against the moisture. The swamp is alive, yes, but not in the usual sense. It's not a place you walk through, it's a place you sink into. It creeps, it seeps, it waits. You spend your days like an early engineer, troubleshooting dampness. Where do the ants come from? Why is this part of the floor always wetter than the rest? How is that mushroom growing inside your fire pit? No one knows, but you log it in your mind like a scientist. Swamp rule number 7. Nothing is ever truly dry. On a good day, the sun burns through the mist, the frogs hush for 10 whole minutes, and you find dry bark under a dead tree. You feel something close to joy. On a bad day, your foot slips into a hidden puddle of black water that smells like old teeth, and a beetle the size of your thumb crawls out of your sleeve. Your cousin starts weaving cattail mats for bedding. They help a little. The mats dry out faster than grass and offer a layer of distance between your skin and the ever-present ooze. You start copying him. Soon, everyone in the camp has a mat, except your uncle, who still insists that cold mud is good for the joints. He also believes thunder is the sky shouting at liars, so take that how you will. You learn to check your boots before putting them on. One morning, you forget. A tiny frog launches out like a slime missile and slaps you directly in the face. Your family laughs so hard they can't breathe. You start wearing sandals instead. As you settle into this miserable routine, you notice small changes in yourself. You've begun walking lighter, sensing which patches of ground might swallow your weight. You listen more carefully to the birds, to the buzz of insects, even to the patterns of splashes out on the water. And that's when you realize the splashes have a pattern. They happen mostly at dusk. Always three, always evenly spaced. Splash, splash, splash. Then silence. You try to convince yourself it's just a beaver or something. Of course, you've never seen a beaver in your life, but someone once described a log rat with teeth, and you're holding on to that image like a lucky charm. Nightfall is never truly dark here. Even without fire, the bioluminescent algae glows faintly along the edges of the water. It's beautiful, in that eerie way fireflies are. If fireflies never blinked and seemed to form vague, human-ish shapes from the corner of your eye. You sit by the fire, chewing a fishtail and trying to pretend that shadow across the pond didn't just move. Ancient people weren't stupid. They just had different frameworks. They saw spirits in water, gods in trees, monsters in illness. In your swamp, you've started doing the same. That rustling bush? Probably a ghost. That glint between the cattails? Probably a spirit's eye. It's not paranoia, it's pattern recognition. And survival. You wake up one morning and the air smells wrong. Sharp, bitter, almost metallic. Your nose wrinkles before your brain even catches up. Then you hear it, buzzing. Not the usual background mosquito drone, but a deeper, coordinated sound, like 1,000 wings flapping in unison. You peer out of your shelter and see a black cloud undulating over the water. Midges, millions of them. You dive back into your lean-to, slap a cattail mat across the entrance, and wait. They pass over like a wave of hunger. Your cousin, who tried to brave them with smoke, comes back looking like a piece of old fruit, swollen, red, and very, very itchy. You make a note. Smoke doesn't stop midges. More importantly, don't be a hero. And now your lean-to smells worse than ever. Not just damp, fermented. The floor has started growing something. You scrape at it with a stick, but the slime returns the next morning. It's minty green now. That's new. You joke that it's evolving. You try not to think about it too much. Historians still debate whether early humans chose to settle in swampy environments out of necessity, desperation, or sheer clueless optimism. You now have a theory. They just didn't know what else to do. You're living proof. You could leave, but then what? Start over again? Walk for days? At least here you've got fish, wood, and something that might eventually dry out if the sun ever learns to focus. Your aunt tries something new, hanging her bedding from 2 trees. It sags in the middle and looks like a sad fruit hammock, but it's off the ground. You copy her. It helps. For a while, you're adapting. Slowly. Stubbornly. You start using charcoal on your skin to repel bugs, like some tribes did centuries later in Papua New Guinea. You rub mint leaves behind your ears, mostly because they smell less like swamp than you do. But still, the swamp presses in. You can hear your shelter rotting. You can feel your tools dulling from the moisture. Even your dreams are swampy now, full of waterlogged footsteps, whispering cattails, and that faint, rhythmic splash echoing across the pond. One night, a tree frog lands directly on your chest mid-sleep. You wake up gasping, thinking it's a snake or worse. The frog stares at you like you're the weirdo. You gently fling it off into the darkness, whispering, "Go haunt someone else." The next morning, your cousin finds your spear, half sunk into the mud, the shaft warped from wetness. He sharpens a new one with a flint edge and offers it to you like a peace treaty. You don't say anything, just nod. You both know the real enemy here isn't each other. It's the swamp. The eternal, oozing, groaning, buzzing, laughing swamp. Because sometimes it does feel like it's laughing. Like when you finally dig a tiny drainage channel and it immediately floods backward. Or when your attempt at a drying rack turns into a squirrel launch pad. Or when you sit down on what you think is a mossy rock, only to discover it's a sleeping turtle with no chill. You catch yourself smiling more, oddly enough. The misery has softened into absurdity. You're part of the ecosystem now. You smell like it, look like it, even think like it. Still, part of you watches the tree line every night, just in case the ground ever decides to swallow you whole. You make a note to yourself. Mentally, of course, because paper hasn't been invented and also would dissolve here anyway. Swamp rule number 22. Just because it's quiet doesn't mean it's safe. You wake to the sound of breathing that isn't yours. It's low, wet, rhythmic. Not quite animal, not quite human, but something in between. And it's close. Very close. You don't move. Your heart, on the other hand, starts doing its best drum solo against your ribs. You lie perfectly still, your cattle mat rising and falling with your chest. The fire's out. There's only faint moonlight filtering through the mist. But your eyes adjust fast. Too fast, actually, which means the thing isn't far at all. Then it stops breathing. You hear a rustle, a plop, then silence. Not the good kind of silence, the swamp kind. The kind where everything is waiting, even the bugs, even the frogs. You sit up slowly and peer outside. You see nothing. You feel watched. You whisper to yourself, probably just a pig. But pigs don't breathe like that. And pigs don't know how to hold their breath to make you nervous. The others hear it too. You find out in the morning, your aunt refuses to leave her lean-to. Your cousin sharpens 3 spears instead of 1. Even the turtle that usually hangs around your fire pit is gone. That one hurts. The swamp has changed. Or maybe it hasn't. Maybe it's always been like this and you're only now paying attention. You go to fetch water and find strange tracks by the edge of the pond. Not claw marks, not hooves, not barefoot either, but something in between. They trail into the reeds and vanish like a bad idea. You start bathing less. The water, once clear enough to see your knobby knees, now churns with floating matter. Gray, stringy stuff that sticks to your skin and makes your body hair stand straight. You try filtering it through woven grass, but that just clogs the filter. You try boiling it. The stink only gets worse. So you resort to wiping yourself with leaves, which is a whole new lottery. Some sting. Some crumble. One made you hallucinate the color purple for 3 hours, which was actually not unpleasant. The creatures in the swamp are also changing. The frogs now make a sound that feels like sarcasm. The birds only sing when you're trying to sleep. And something in the reeds now groans at midday. That's new. Swamp rule number 31. If it groans before noon, you've overstayed your welcome. Your cousin builds a trap near the pond. Simple spring mechanism, lifted log. It goes off at some point in the night, but in the morning, no body, no blood. Just a broken branch and a dent in the dirt, like something laughed at the whole idea. That's the last night your cousin sleeps on the ground. He joins your aunt in her saggy tree hammock. You stay below, because someone has to be brave, or at least too tired to climb trees. There's an ancient Sumerian legend, long after your time of course, about creatures made of river clay and spirit breath. They walk between the world of men and beasts. Historians can't agree if these stories reflect real fears, or just metaphors for disease, fog, and swamp madness. But tonight, you'd believe anything. Because when you wake up to find a perfectly arranged pile of fish bones outside your shelter, like a little offering, like a gift, you don't think wind. You think message. You leave your own message in return. A smoothed rock, a twist of braided vine, a feather. The next morning, it's gone. Replaced with a small pile of wet moss. You stare at the moss like it insulted your mother. It's around this time that you stop calling the thing in the swamp it. You start calling it them. Them has preferences. They don't like fire. They don't like shouting. They do like fish. You try not to make assumptions. Sometimes you think you hear humming, like a long, low drone that makes your teeth itch. It comes from deep in the reeds. You hum back one night just to see what happens. The swamp goes silent for 10 full minutes. Then a frog explodes, literally, right next to your foot. No one believes you, of course. Your uncle says frogs don't explode. Your cousin thinks you're dehydrated. Your aunt just stares into the trees and mutters about the watchers. You sleep less. You guard more. You've started sharpening your tools twice a day, even the ones you don't use. It's not about being prepared. It's about pretending you're still in charge. But you're not. Not really. Because now, even your dreams are different. You dream of roots growing through your legs, of reeds wrapping around your arms, of being pulled, not violently, just persistently, into the water. It's almost peaceful, which is the worst part. Historians still argue whether dreams served practical survival functions for early humans. Mental rehearsals for danger, symbols of tribal memory, even spirit communication. But none of those theories help you at 3 a.m. when you wake up soaked in sweat and moss and something else. You stop sleeping near the water. You move your shelter uphill, barely a few feet, but it feels symbolic. The first night you hear footsteps below. Sloppy, squishy, like something confused by your absence. You don't breathe, you don't blink, and finally it leaves. The next morning, your firewood pile has been rearranged. Not scattered, just stacked differently. Taller, neater. It looks like fingers were involved. You try to laugh. Helpful ghost, you whisper. No one laughs back. You start noticing more patterns. The frog songs are no longer random. They start and stop together, like a choir with a conductor. The fireflies blink in spirals. The reeds sway against the wind. And once, just once, you hear your own name. Whispered. From the pond. You don't even react anymore. You just roll over and mutter, "Try harder." By now, you've begun marking time with moss growth and insect cycles. Your skin is a map of bites, scratches, and fungal experiments. Your sense of normal has shifted. A day without footprints near the water? Good day. A night where you don't hear breathing? Great night. A morning where your fish don't come prearranged like a little buffet? Almost disappointing. You build a small idol. You don't mean to, really. It just happens. A bit of driftwood, some bone shards, feathers. You set it at the edge of camp. The next morning, someone's added a frog skull. You nod at it. Mutual respect. You've never seen them, not directly. But you've stopped expecting to. That's not how this works. The swamp doesn't show, it suggests. That night, lightning cracks the sky like it's angry. Rain pours so hard the trees bow in submission. You shelter beneath a woven mat, clinging to your gear, praying the ground doesn't liquefy completely. And in the chaos, in the roar of storm and wind and splintering branches, you see it. A shape, tall, thin, moving through the water like it belongs there. No face, no limbs, just form. A ripple in space. Then it's gone. You don't scream, you don't even tell anyone. What's the point? The swamp has eyes, and now you think maybe it has a face too. The next morning you leave a bit of honeycomb by the idol. It's gone by noon. You start rubbing crocodile dung on your arms. It's not a dare. It's not a prank. It's a strategy. You watched one of the old women do it last week. No explanation. Just scooped up a chunky smear from near the water and applied it like she was prepping for battle. She hasn't been bitten since. The rest of you, meanwhile, look like someone ran you through a briar patch and then dipped you in fire ants. So now it's your turn. The dung goes on cold and sticky. Smells like something that died, came back, and then died again of embarrassment. But hey, if it keeps the bugs off, you'll wear it like war paint. And weirdly, it works. At least, it works better than mud, or crushed mint, or ashes, or whatever that sticky sap was that nearly glued your eyes shut for a day. Ancient Egyptians, long after your time, used crocodile dung mixed with honey and herbs in various rituals, sometimes even as medicine. Historians are still arguing whether it was based on spiritual belief or observed effect. But right now, all you care about is not being eaten alive by winged demons. The rest of the tribe follows your lead. Well, slowly. Your cousin gags the first time. Your aunt insists she'd rather be itchy. Your uncle just mutters, "I've done worse," and smears a double layer like he's about to run a marathon through mosquito hell. You all smell terrible. But finally, for once, you're not being nibbled down to bone every evening. Small victories. You try expanding your hygiene experiments. You mix crushed charcoal with wet sand and use it to scrub your skin. It stings. It also removes an entire layer of swamp. You emerge slightly pinker, slightly raw, but noticeably less moldy. Progress. Soon, you're inventing a routine. Dung in the morning, charcoal scrub at noon, leaf rinse at dusk. You're a caveman with a skincare regimen. Even the kids get into it. They start collecting weird-smelling leaves and making potions in broken gourd shells. Some of them just explode or smell like foot fungus, but one batch actually repels gnats. You name it Swamp Brew number 3 and immediately forget the ingredients. You try it on your legs. Works great until a frog licks it and starts hiccuping violently. You name that frog Kevin. Kevin is now your unofficial testing assistant. But not everything is a science fair. One morning, you step out and find someone's left you a stack of stones shaped into a perfect spiral. It wasn't your tribe. You ask everyone. No one claims it. You leave it untouched. That night, it's gone. In its place, a single bone, stripped clean, balanced upright in the mud. Cool. Totally normal swamp diplomacy. You find yourself talking to the swamp more now, not in fear, just casually, like a roommate. You murmur, "Please don't flood my shelter tonight." Or, "Hey, thanks for the semi-edible fish." You even leave offerings, berries, bones, shiny rocks. They disappear overnight. Sometimes they're replaced, sometimes they're not. Your aunt finds a clay bowl one morning, perfectly formed, no cracks, like it just came out of a kiln. Except no one in your group knows how to make pottery. It's decorated with spiral lines, dots, and what might be a frog, or maybe a god. Hard to say. You use it for water anyway. The bowl never leaks, never breaks. Even after your cousin accidentally drops it into the fire. You pull it out expecting a mess. It's fine, just a little sootier, like it's been waiting for fire all along. So now you've got dung for bugs, swamp soap for skin, and a haunted bowl for hydration. Things are looking up, until the dreams return, stronger now. Not just water and reeds and that same rhythmic splash. Now you see hands, long, webbed, emerging from the black water. You see faces behind cattails, pale and smiling. You feel your own legs turning to roots, stretching down, drinking the swamp. You wake up panting. You check your skin. It's still yours. For now, the others are dreaming too. You can tell. They move in their sleep. Mutter in odd rhythms. One of the children draws a picture in the dirt. 4 eyes, stacked in pairs, watching from inside a circle. He says it's the voice under the water. You move your sleeping spot uphill again. Even higher. Almost to the ridge where the trees begin. The air there feels different. Less wet, more pine. Your cousin joins you. So does your aunt. The tribe is slowly retreating, inch by inch, like ants crawling back from honey that might bite. You still visit the pond, you still talk to the water. But now it's with more caution. You wash your hair with crushed fern and ash, an accidental discovery that leaves your scalp cool and your head less smelly. You feel almost civilized, like maybe you've turned the corner, tamed the place, and then you find the footprints. Human, barefoot, adult-sized, but with toes that end in points. No claw marks, just sharp, tapering digits that seem to dig slightly deeper with each step, like they were pulled, not walked, through the mud. You follow them. They circle a tree, then stop. No more tracks. You look up. Nothing in the branches, just a low hum in the air. You turn around and go back uphill without looking behind you once. You don't talk about it. You don't need to. The swamp has moods. That morning, it was annoyed. And yet, it's beautiful here. That's the problem. Some nights, the sky turns orange just before dusk. The mist turns golden, like you're walking through someone's dream. Fireflies rise in spirals. Birds sing in flocks. The frogs go quiet, as if they're listening to the sky. On nights like that, you almost forget the breathing, the dreams, the footprints. You almost forgive the swamp. You whisper things like, "Maybe we could stay." You mean it. Historians still debate whether early humans were drawn more by beauty or utility. Whether our ancestors chose places like this because they were lush or because they felt right in some bone-deep, irrational way. You don't know the answer. But the next morning you find 3 dead fish stacked on your sleeping mat, neatly, head to tail, perfectly aligned. You don't fish, you don't ask, you just cook them. And thank the water. The others see it too, see the pattern. They start setting out food at night, not just scraps, full offerings. Cooked meat, berries, carved beads. Sometimes the offerings are taken. Sometimes they're rearranged into shapes, spirals, triangles, a circle of teeth. You draw a line in the dirt. Swamp diplomacy is one thing, but circles of teeth? That's where you draw the line, literally. And still you adapt. You carve out a routine of survival and ritual. You bathe less, talk more to things that don't answer, and invent tools that keep failing but failing less. You laugh more, even when it's nervous laughter. You joke about marrying a swamp spirit for better weather. You name the shadows. You give the moss around your camp its own weird holiday. Because if you don't joke, you scream. And you're not ready to scream yet. The swamp has become your mirror. It reflects your mood, your scent, your choices. It offers both punishment and reward, as if it's learning you while you learn it. That night, the fire doesn't light. Not once. The wood hisses, then dies. You sleep cold. And in your dream, something crawls out of the water and hands you a bone comb. You wake up, next to your mat, a bone comb, dripping wet. It starts with the fish. Not the ones you eat, not even the ones gifted in neat little triangles on your mat. No, these are the rotten ones. The kind that float belly up near the shore. The kind that smell before you see them. Their eyes have gone milky, their scales patchy. They bob in the water like bloated leaves, bumping against the reeds in lazy, aimless arcs. At first, it's just one. Then two. By the third day, you've counted 12, all in different states of decay. You poke one with a stick, only for its skin to split open like soggy paper, releasing a smell that makes you gag hard enough to worry something might exit your own body. You stop fetching water from the pond. The rest of the tribe notices too. They start wandering farther upstream, toward the cleaner creek. It's an uphill hike, full of roots that grab your ankles and bugs that try to mate with your ears, but it's better than drinking fish soup. Probably. That same week, 2 families leave. Not dramatically, no grand goodbye or shouted warnings. One morning, they're just gone. Their shelters flattened, their cooking stones still warm. They leave behind a bone flute and a pouch of dried berries. You try not to read into that. You ask your cousin where he thinks they went. He shrugs. Maybe back to the cliffs, maybe east. He doesn't say the other thing. Maybe they didn't go far at all. The frogs get louder. You didn't think that was possible. But now their chorus is constant, like a swamp-wide concert with no intermission. Their croaks overlap, forming strange harmonics. Once they sync up perfectly, 30 voices booming in unison for a full 30 seconds. Your entire spine clenches. Then silence. Then one lone bleep in the distance. You decide to sleep with your spear after that. The swamp smells different now. Not worse, just different, like burnt sugar mixed with dead leaves and something sharp like metal. You keep sniffing your hands just to check it's not you. It's not. Your uncle tries to cook one of the floating fish. He says waste is weakness, but the meat turns black in the fire. Not brown, not charred, black. And when he cracks the bones, they leak something milky. He doesn't eat it. Not even he is that stubborn. He does stop talking for 2 days, though. Swamp rule number 41. If the food looks like it might hiss back, don't eat it. You start noticing absences. The squirrel that used to chitter at you from the branch above your shelter? Gone. The tiny beetles that used to gather near your torchlight? Gone. Even Kevin, your semi-domesticated frog with chronic hiccups, hasn't shown up in 2 nights. You wander the edges of camp calling for him. Kevin! You whisper into the reeds. Come back, buddy. I've got fresh gnat stew. No reply. Instead, you find his favorite perch, a flat, sun-warmed rock, covered in neatly arranged pebbles. A spiral again. You leave a crushed mint leaf on it and walk away. Your dreams change again. Now they're filled with faces, not monstrous, not ghostly, just watching. Calm, round, blank, like masks. You can't tell if they're friendly or just indifferent. They never speak, they never move. But you know they see you. Sometimes you see them when you're awake too. Just for a flash. Reflected in puddles, shimmering between branches, smiling, always smiling. You start talking to them. Just in case. Morning, you mumble while tying your sandals. Nice weather today. You wave at a puddle. Thanks for not drowning me in my sleep. Your cousin starts doing it too. You hear him whispering by the cooking stones, asking the spirits if they prefer rabbit or fish. He leaves both. One always disappears. The other remains, usually moldy by morning. Swamp cuisine is now a guessing game. Your aunt begins painting symbols on her shelter walls using red clay and crushed berries. Spirals, eyes, wavy lines. It's protection, she says, or at least it helps me feel protected. You help her reapply them after rainstorms. She still sleeps in her hammock, but now she ties small bells to the branches above. You're not sure if they're for warning or music. She doesn't elaborate. The food situation gets worse. The normal fish are either too small, too sick, or too smart. The berries are shriveling before they ripen. Even the frogs seem jumpier. You try hunting inland, but find only strange claw marks and a broken skull that doesn't belong to anything you recognize. So you get creative. You find an old stash of mushrooms under a rotting log. They're speckled, rubbery, and smell like foot cheese. You roast one. Tastes like sadness, but you don't die. You call them lunch mushrooms and eat them sparingly. Your cousin tries one and giggles for an hour, then cries for another. You label that patch absolutely not mushrooms and mark it with crossed sticks. Ancient people regularly experimented with plants for food, medicine, and sometimes by accident, hallucination. Early hunter-gatherers didn't have textbooks. They had taste buds and hope. Historians still debate whether most herbal discoveries were genius or just really lucky guesses. You're leaning toward desperation and low standards. The mood in camp shifts. People stop laughing as much. There's less storytelling around the fire, more muttering, more gestures of salt over the shoulder, more "did you hear that?" followed by silence. Even the children don't play as loud anymore. They sit in clusters, drawing spirals in the dirt with twigs. You watch one sketch a perfect eye, over and over. She never looks up. You try to lift spirits. You invent a swamp game involving skipping stones and yelling fake curses at them. It works for 10 minutes until one of the stones skips upstream. Against the current, no one claps. That night, someone screams. You all bolt upright, clutching weapons, fire pokers, rocks, whatever's close. But there's no second scream. No struggle. Just panting. When you find her, she's curled in the mud outside her shelter, eyes wide, pointing at nothing. It was smiling, she says. It had no eyes, but it was smiling. You walk her back, cover her in a blanket, build a second fire. Everyone stays up till sunrise. No one mentions it the next day. That's how these things work now. But more people leave. They pack quietly, take only what they need. Say they're going north or west or wherever the land rises and the mist fades. No one tries to stop them. You start marking who's left with notches in a log. The log is getting smooth. The frog stops singing altogether. At first, you don't notice until you realize how quiet the nights have become. No croaking, no buzzing, not even the splash, splash, splash. It's worse than noise. It's absence. You keep your spear closer now. Sleep in shifts with your cousin. Your aunt starts keeping a bowl of salt near the fire. You don't know why. You don't ask. And then one morning you wake up to a smell, something new. Smoke. Not from your fire, from farther in. You scramble up the hill and look out. A neighboring camp, one you hadn't seen in days, is burning. Tall flames licking at the trees. No shouts, no movement, just fire. And something tall moving slowly through the smoke. You back away. Fall down twice. Don't stop until you're back near your mat. You don't mention it. What would you even say? That night you place 2 fish by the idol. You light 2 fires. One for warmth, one for warning. And you whisper, "We're still here, but maybe not for long." You're feverish, not just a little warm. Not just a mild case of swamp sweats. No, this is full-on, skin-burning, vision-blurring, soul-leaking fever. The kind that curls you into a ball on your mat and convinces you that moss might be edible if you chew it long enough. Your body aches like you've been trampled by something large and disinterested in your well-being. Your bones creak. Your teeth feel too big for your mouth. The swamp's humidity feels like it has crawled inside you and is now trying to boil you from the inside out. You're not alone. Half the camp is sick. Your cousin is lying face down in the mud, too weak to lift his head. Your aunt talks in her sleep, fragmented, fevered things about red reeds and hands with no nails. Even your uncle, who once wrestled a wild boar into a stew pot, is sweating through 3 layers of moss like he's being exercised. Nobody knows what it is. The clean water's too far now. The food's barely food. The mosquitoes are bolder than ever. Big ones, thick ones, buzzing like helicopters made of meat. You swat one, only to find its blood sac full of something black. Not red. Black. You flick it away and try not to think about what that means. You chew bitter roots. You smear yourself in mint and charcoal and hope for the best. Your aunt gives you a paste made from something yellow and crusty. It tastes like foot soap but makes the throbbing behind your eyes dull to a soft vibration. So you keep licking it. At one point you hallucinate a tree speaking to you. Not with words, just feelings. Regret. Warnings. Hunger. You nod, because somehow that makes sense. In ancient times, people believed sickness was caused by spirits, bad air, angry gods, or forgotten ancestors who were cranky about being ignored. And honestly, right now that sounds more plausible than germs. You try to stay conscious, but sleep grabs you like a wave. You fall into fever dreams, mud huts filled with light, frogs chanting in circles, a version of yourself with reeds for fingers and a mouth that only speaks in whistles. You wake up to your name, whispered. Again. This time it's real. Your eyes crack open, the fire's low, the moon is gone, but someone or something is nearby. You hear your name again, but it's wrong. Bent, like someone heard it once and is trying to pronounce it with teeth that don't quite fit the task. You grip your spear, you rise slowly. There's a shadow near the pond. Tall, slender, motionless. You blink and it's gone. You sit back down, heart pounding like thunder in your ears. You check your skin, still hot, still clammy, but no blood, no marks, just the same bites and bruises. You drink from the haunted bowl. The water tastes like wet leaves and relief. You survive the night. Barely. The fever breaks by morning, leaving you hollow and shaken like an old gourd. Your cousin's still out cold. Your aunt is awake but distant, staring at the smoke spiraling off the coals as if it's telling her secrets. You gather herbs, fern tips, root shavings, something mossy. You mix them. You brew something close to tea. It helps a little. Or maybe it just gives you purpose. You remember a patch of clay near the edge of camp. Dark, slick stuff that your uncle once said smells like teeth. You dig a lump and press it to your forehead. It's cool. Almost. Aware. You smear more on your chest, your shoulders, your arms. You feel calmer. You do the same to the others. One by one, you paint your tribe in gray, healing dirt. It becomes a ritual. Each day someone new smears the clay. You call it swamp armor. It doesn't cure the fever, but it soothes the heat. It distracts the mind. It gives the swamp a show of strength. Historians argue whether early humans used medicinal mud deliberately or by accident. In some prehistoric graves, bodies have been found coated in mineral-rich clays, suggesting either healing practices or symbolic protection. But in your world, it's survival, plain and simple. The dreams keep coming. Now they're less frightening. More instructional. You see the plants you should pick. You hear rhythms that feel like directions. You follow the path in the dream, and in real life it leads to a grove of pale mushrooms beneath an ancient log. You test one on a beetle. It doesn't die. You eat it. You don't die. Progress. You begin building again, slowly. A drying rack near the fire, a new shelf of stone for tools, a set of charms woven from grass and bone to hang near sleeping mats. You tell yourself it's for morale. Your cousin finally wakes up. He's thin as a reed but smiling like he's made of sunlight. You feed him soup made from suspicious roots and call it victory stew. He eats it without gagging. Another win. You find Kevin again. Sort of. He's just a skeleton now, perched on the rock where you first met. But someone or something has placed a crown of moss on his little froggy skull. You bury him. You sing. You thank him for his service. The swamp listens. The next day, your traps are full. You don't ask questions. You just collect. But the weirdness isn't over. Not even close. The air takes on a different texture. Not wetter, somehow thicker, like you're breathing through fog that's been chewed and spit out again. The sound carries differently. A bird call echoes twice. A twig snaps miles away but sounds like it's at your elbow. You climb a tree to get a better look. The sky is normal. The mist rolls like always. But the swamp seems shifted, slightly tilted. like the horizon's trying to slide away. That night, your aunt has a vision. Not a dream, a vision. She sits up straight in the dark and starts humming, a tune none of you know but all of you feel. Low, slow, circular. The kind of sound that vibrates your bones before your ears. You join in without meaning to. So does your cousin. The whole camp hums. When it stops, no one speaks. You sleep like the dead. When you wake, the fever is gone. Not eased. Not mostly better. Gone. Like it was never there. Your skin feels cool. Your head is clear. Your uncle even makes a joke. Something about dream medicine frogs. You laugh too loud, just because you can. You venture farther that day. You gather food with new energy. You find a root that smells like pepper and tastes like possibility. You find a patch of edible leaves. You start calling them lucky lettuce. And then, right in the middle of your gathering, your cousin stops walking. Points. You look. It's a circle. A perfect circle. Cleared in the middle of the forest. No leaves. No debris. No tracks. Just emptiness. You approach. Slowly. Silently. There's no noise in the clearing. No bugs. No birds. You don't step in. You just watch. Then your aunt says quietly, "This is where they were born." You don't ask who. You don't want the answer. You leave the clearing at night. You place your offerings at the usual stone. 3 roots, a carved fish, a bundle of mint. All disappear by morning. You feel watched, but not threatened. You feel marked, but not claimed. The swamp has changed, and so have you. You swat one, and it bursts. Blood. Not yours. Not even human. Just something's. It spatters across your arm in a thick black smear that smells like wet charcoal and rotten berries. You gag. You try not to gag again. You fail. You've dealt with bugs before. Always. They've been there since day one, biting, buzzing, stinging, feeding. But now they're worse. You thought you'd seen peak mosquito horror. You were wrong. These new ones aren't like the others. They don't just bite and go. They hover. They choose. They wait until you're tired, distracted, maybe even laughing. Then they strike. Smart, fast, relentless. They don't fear smoke, or fire, or crocodile dung. They laugh at crocodile dung. You wake up with dozens of bites on your arms and legs, some of them clustered, some in perfect little circles like tiny rituals. Your cousin calls them the priest bites. You try to chuckle. It comes out nervous. You try everything. Mud, herbs, ash, swamp armor, fresh sap, even chewing bitter roots and rubbing the pulp on your neck. They still come. Your aunt starts sleeping under 2 layers of cattail mats. Your uncle builds a fire ring around his mat and calls it his burn circle. It works for one night. Then he wakes up coughing with lungs full of smoke and 2 bites behind his eyelid. You try staying up all night. You last 3 hours. Then your eyes close just for a moment. When you open them again, there's a mosquito hovering over your cheek, slowly drifting in, like it knows you're watching. You slap it. You miss. It doesn't leave. It tilts like it's offended, then drifts into the dark. Swamp rule number 57. If the bugs start making eye contact, it's time to rethink everything. You ask your aunt how many bites she's had. She looks at you blank. I stopped counting at 50. You start drawing maps of where the worst bites are. Upper arms? Bad. Ankles? Awful. Eyelids? Unholy. You make diagrams in the dirt, tracking bite trends like a caveman epidemiologist. The children are cranky, red-faced, puffy-eyed. One of them starts scratching so hard he bleeds. You wrap his hands in soft bark strips and rub honey on the wounds. He stops crying, starts humming instead. The same hum your aunt sang in her vision. That night, everyone hums. It helps, maybe. Historians still argue about the rise of early medicine, how trial, instinct, and sheer stubbornness birthed the first remedies. Was it ritual, observation, luck? Or maybe, just maybe, it was the bugs. Maybe they forced humanity to evolve. You wouldn't be surprised. One morning, you wake to find your hands trembling, not from fever, not from fear, just from too much buzzing. You don't remember sleeping. Your shelter looks like it's been raided by moths, holes, scratches, a weird green smear on the inside of your mat. You sniff it. You instantly regret it. You wander toward the creek, maybe for water, maybe to escape, maybe to drown. You're not sure anymore. Then you see them. 3 of them, standing in the water, not your tribe, not people. Tall, Thin, pale gray, faces long and smooth like wet bark. No eyes, just slight indentations, arms too long, hands with too many fingers, just standing. Silent. They don't move. You freeze, you breathe. They slowly sink into the water. Gone. No ripples, no bubbles, just silence. You sit down and stare at the spot for what feels like hours. You don't scream, you don't run, you just exist, as quietly as possible. That night, the bugs don't bite. At all. You sleep like you've been hit with a rock. When you wake, there are 3 perfect circles of stones outside your shelter. You thank them. You don't know what for. But you thank them anyway. The rest of the tribe has noticed. The mosquitoes don't come as often now. Only the weak ones. The slow ones. The ones you can slap with a smirk. You start seeing gifts again. A bundle of bark, twisted into a braid and tied with grass. A fish, gutted, cleaned, and stuffed with mint. A cluster of berries arranged into a spiral on a flat rock. You don't question it, you respond. You leave your best spearhead. A carving of a bird. A handful of glowing firefly husks pressed into resin. They vanish by morning. Your cousin whispers, "Maybe they're protecting us now." You nod. Maybe. Or maybe it's just a truce. One that could break the second you do something stupid, like insult the wrong tree, or walk too deep into the reeds, or stop singing that strange humming song when the air gets heavy. You make rules. Sing at dusk. Leave offerings every 3rd day. No loud arguments near the pond. Always greet the mist when it rolls in. Always. Your aunt marks your shelters with clay symbols. New ones now. Less spiral, more angular, like eyes that don't blink, or mouths that speak only in dreams. She claims she saw one of them touch a tree, and the tree bloomed. Right there, in full. You ask her what she felt in that moment. She says, awe. Then she adds, and warning. The bugs begin to die. Not just disappear, die. You find piles of them, shriveled, husks, sometimes arranged in patterns, circles, lines, X's, like someone's cleaning house. You find one inside your mat, its wings gone, its body curled into a fetal pose. You bury it, not out of pity, out of respect. The air grows clearer. The trees seem greener. The frogs begin to return, quietly, hesitantly. Their croaks are soft now, as if asking for permission. The tribe grows quieter too, not from fear, from reverence. You begin to like the silence, not the fearful kind, the thoughtful kind, the sacred pause before thunder, the hush before revelation. Your cousin invents a flute. It's crude, hollowed bone with holes made by fire. He plays it every evening. Soft notes, sad notes, notes that sound like they've always existed. You swear the reeds sway in rhythm. One morning, you wake with a mark on your palm, a swirl, burned but not painful, like a tattoo from a dream. Your aunt has the same, so does your cousin, so does the boy who hummed in his sleep. You don't panic, you accept. You don't speak of it. You don't need to. You're marked, favored, owned. Who knows? But ever since that night, no one's been bitten. Not once. You rebuild your shelter one last time, stronger, taller, raised completely off the ground. You call it the listening house. You hang reeds from its corners that whisper in the breeze. You sleep there every night, waiting to dream. The buzzing has stopped. The groans have quieted. Even the shadows have settled. You feel safe? Maybe. For now. You press your hand to the marked wood at your shelter entrance and whisper, "Thank you. Just in case." You lose your best spear in the mud. One moment it's in your hand, your favorite one, flint tip perfectly chipped, handle wrapped with dyed bark, balanced like a dream. And the next, it's gone. You trip, you stumble, and it slides out of your grip, sinks like a ghost into the swamp's mouth. No splash, no trace. Just gone. You stare at the spot. Then you reach in, elbow deep, digging through muck and slime and ancient forgotten things. You come up with a rock, a broken beetle, and something that feels like a soggy rope made of moss. But not your spear. It's the first time in weeks the swamp has taken something you weren't willing to offer. It doesn't feel like a warning. It feels like a reminder. A reminder that even now, even after the dreams, the silence, the vanished bugs, you're still a guest here. You spend the afternoon carving a new spear. It's clumsy, uneven, feels wrong in your hand. But it'll do. You don't sleep that night. Not from fear. This time it's something else. You lie on your mat, eyes open, listening. And the swamp answers. Not with sounds, with presence. You can feel it around you, between the reeds, beneath the dirt in the air. Not malevolent, not kind, just aware, like it's waiting. You sit up, careful not to wake your cousin. You walk barefoot to the pond. The water is still, too still. Then something stirs, soft ripples like breath over a bowl. You whisper, "I lost my spear." The water doesn't respond. You wait. A frog croaks in the distance. You nod. You understand. You walk back. That's when you notice it. The pile of stones by your mat, perfectly stacked. 5 flat ones, ascending in size, like a little staircase. On top, your spear. Perfect. Clean, not even muddy. You don't touch it. Not yet. You just sit and watch until morning. The others notice too. Little things. The fire never dies, even in the wind. The food doesn't spoil as fast. The children sleep through the night, no cries, no scratches, no nightmares. Something has shifted. You still don't speak of it. That's the rule now. But the silence is comfortable. It's a truce you don't want to break. Until the howling begins. The first time, it sounds like wind, high and sharp, weaving through the trees like a threat of panic. But then it crescendos. Too loud for wind, too deliberate. Everyone freezes. Your cousin whispers, "Is that a wolf?" You shake your head. There are no wolves here. Not anymore. The howling returns every night after that. Never close. Never far. Just near enough. Sometimes it sounds like a scream. Sometimes it sounds like music. One night it mimics a human voice, just once. It calls your aunt's name. She doesn't move for hours. You stop sleeping again. You start pacing the perimeter of the camp each dusk, spear in hand, eyes scanning the reeds, the trees, the sky. Nothing moves, except shadows that weren't there before, except outlines that vanish when you blink. You're not alone, and you never were. But now it's personal. You lose another tool, a carving knife this time. Not dropped, just gone. You set it down for a moment, turned your head, and when you looked back, the stone blade was missing. The bone handle was still there, clean. You whisper, "Okay." You don't ask for it back. It returns the next day, tied to a bundle of fresh herbs and a piece of smoked fish. You eat it. You sharpen the blade. You move on. You notice changes in yourself. You hear things before others do. You feel the weather shift in your bones. Your dreams now carry instructions. You wake with new ideas, tools, traps, even songs. You share them. Everyone listens. No one questions where they come from. One of the children starts drawing symbols in the mud, intricate, delicate, repeating patterns. You don't recognize them, but they feel right. You copy them onto your shelter, onto your spear, onto your skin. You stop seeing them, but you feel them more than ever. The line between fear and reverence blurs. You speak to the fire, you speak to the pond, you speak to the wind, and sometimes the wind pauses like it's listening. Then your cousin disappears. You wake to an empty mat. No sign of struggle, no prints, just a smooth stone where his head should have been, and a single reed tied in a knot placed beside it. You don't cry, you just sit and hum. Your aunt joins you, then your uncle, then the rest of the camp. You hum until sunset. And when the wind howls that night, it sounds different. Like grief, like apology, like recognition. You place food by the pond. His favorite, smoked roots, fish belly, wild mint. You carve his name into bark and float it downstream. You whisper, "Take care of him." You whisper, "He was ready." You whisper, "Thank you." No one asks questions. No one mentions leaving. But now everyone watches the water. More things vanish in the following days. A spoon, a drum, a woven basket filled with berries, each replaced by something else. A feather, a comb, a circle of perfectly arranged snails. Your uncle finds a necklace on his mat, made from teeth and shells. He wears it without a word. The air gets thicker, the light changes. The frogs stop croaking again, but this time it doesn't feel ominous. It feels like morning. You find a patch of moss shaped like a person, arms outstretched, legs bent. You touch it. It's warm. You step back. You don't tell anyone. They already know. That night your aunt dreams of your cousin. She says he looked happy. She says he had eyes like water. You don't sleep. You stand by the pond until morning, spear in hand. When the mist clears, there's a bundle of herbs by your feet, and beside it, a stone etched with a spiral. But this one's different. The spiral opens outward. It starts raining, and it doesn't stop. At first, you welcome it. The swamp already exists in a permanent state of wetness, but this is different. This is a real rain, steady, clean, cooling. You tilt your face to the sky and let it wash across your skin, cleansing the weeks of mud, smoke, and crocodile dung you've worn like a second identity. You laugh. Everyone does. You play like children, slipping in puddles, dancing in the downpour, splashing each other until your legs ache and your teeth chatter. For a brief moment, the swamp feels forgiving, soft, even beautiful. Then the rain keeps going. The ground, already soaked beyond reason, begins to drown. Roots rise from the earth like twisted fingers. Pools merge into lakes. The creek becomes a river, and the river becomes a flood. Shelters collapse in slow, soggy defeat. Cattail mats float away like abandoned promises. The stone fire pit fills with water and goes dark. You try to save what you can: tools, food, dry fibers, but the swamp pulls at your ankles with greedy hands. Every step becomes a battle. Your tribe begins to cluster on higher ground, huddling under trees that offer little more than leafy sympathy. The water rises faster. You lash logs together for a raft, not because you plan to leave, but because it feels smart to have one. Your uncle tries to anchor it to a tree with vine rope. The tree breaks. You try to laugh again, but it comes out thin. The children don't play anymore. They sit on raised rocks, wide-eyed, watching frogs leap past like they're evacuating. Your aunt braids her hair for the first time in weeks. "If I'm going to get swept away," she says, "I might as well look decent doing it." You agree. You finally wash the rest of the soot and blood from your skin. Even your scar, the one from the spear hunt months ago, looks fresh again. You try not to think of it as symbolic. At night, you hear things moving under the water. Not fish, not frogs. Big things. Heavy. One night, the entire pond shifts. The surface heaves once, then settles like something large rolled over beneath it. You don't talk about that either. Swamp rule number 89. If the water breathes, don't ask why. You wait to find your listening house has floated 2 meters from where it was built. You wade out to it, push it back into place, and weigh it down with rocks. It floats again the next night. You give up. You learn to sleep at a tilt. The offerings become harder to leave. Stones sink, herbs float away, spirals dissolve into nothing. You begin carving into bark instead. Symbols, prayers, questions. Sometimes you find them answered. New carvings, shapes you didn't make. One is just a line, straight, unbroken. You take that as reassurance. The howling doesn't return, but now the ground groans. At night you hear it, low and deep, a sound that seems to come from beneath your feet, like the bones of the world are shifting in their sleep. Your cousin would have made a joke. You miss him. You miss a lot of things. The dry ridge, the frog songs, the strange little meals that somehow didn't kill you. Even Kevin. The water rises again. The clay idol is submerged now, just the tip of its mossy head showing above the pond like it's peeking out, waiting for the world to stop melting. You build a new shrine, higher up, using the last dry logs and your own mat. You add feathers, stones, teeth. You carve the spiral again, but inward this time. Your aunt watches you work. She says nothing, but that night she sleeps with one hand on the new shrine. You find others doing it too, touching it in passing, just brushing their fingers along the wood as they walk by. No one says the word, but it's there. Faith and fear. The rain finally slows. Not stops, just slows. The mist hangs heavier now, not rising, just resting. Like a blanket the sky doesn't want to fold up yet. You walk farther than usual, checking what's left. Half the shelters are gone. The fire pit is a pond. The drying rack now hosts a family of wet birds who glare at you like squatters. You wave. Rent's due. They blink. Fair enough. You find the old trail you once used to gather mushrooms. It's a stream now. You follow it anyway. You find moss. Lots of it. More than usual. Almost sculptural. Curving up trees, wrapping rocks, blanketing the world like it's been painting itself while you weren't looking. In the middle of it all, a stone. Carved. Perfectly smooth. Spiral. Again. But this one has dots. 4 of them. In a square around the center. You touch it. It's warm. You sit. You don't speak. The wind picks up slightly, just enough to rustle the reeds. You whisper, "I hear you." You whisper, "I see you." You whisper, "We're still here." You carry the stone back to camp. Place it in the shrine. Everyone notices. No one asks. That night, the ground doesn't groan. And for the first time in weeks, the fire stays lit. You dream, not of faces or water or spirals, but of silence, calm, stillness, the kind that comes after a storm, when everything waits to breathe again. You wake up different, lighter, like the swamp finally let go of something inside you. You find a single fish on your mat, perfect, clean, wrapped in mint. You eat it. Slowly, gratefully. Your aunt smiles. She places a feather in your hair. Your uncle carves something into his spear. The boy who hums begins to sing. You hear it now, a melody buried under the silence. Not human, not swamp, something in between. You hum along. The water begins to recede, not fast, not dramatic, just enough. The pond shrinks. The clay idol rises. The paths return. You rebuild your fire pit with smooth stones. You dry your tools. You carve a bench. You sit. You breathe. You don't rush the leaving. It's not that kind of story. There's no dramatic escape. No frantic scrambling through chest-deep mud while something monstrous screams in the distance. No last-second leap onto a raft made of bones and desperation. No, when you leave the swamp, it's slow. Thoughtful. Like stepping back from an old friend who just reminded you they're not really safe to be around. The water has receded, but it hasn't disappeared. The ground still squelches under your feet. The air still holds that sweet rotting perfume of decay and blooming things. But now you can walk again. The trails have reappeared. Thin and muddy, sure, but recognizable. Stones once buried now gleam like breadcrumbs. You follow them. Not far. Just far enough. You and the others spend a week preparing. You dry meat, pack bundles of herbs, weave reed pouches for tools and charms and the few things that haven't disintegrated in the damp. You whisper to the water each morning. You leave your last offerings at the shrine. One feather, one spiral stone, one frog's skull, bleached white and hollow. You don't cry when you place it, but your throat tightens just a little. Your aunt draws new marks on your arms before you go. Thick lines for protection, thin curves for memory. Your uncle gifts you a fresh spear, one he's carved from driftwood, sealed with smoke and etched with a spiral so tight it looks like a fingerprint. You sling it over your shoulder and feel ready, almost. On your last night, you return to the pond, alone. The moon is full and pale, floating in the sky like a coin flipped by the gods. The water reflects it perfectly, still, quiet, unknowable. You crouch, you listen, you wait. There's no sound, no hum, no breathing, only the faint rustle of trees that might just be wind this time. You speak softly. "Thank you for not killing us." You pause. "Thank you for teaching us." And finally, "We'll remember." A breeze lifts the edge of your tunic. You take it as acknowledgement. You return to camp. You sleep like someone who survived. In the morning, you leave. You don't look back. Well, okay. Once, at the tree line, just a glance. Just enough to see the pond in the distance, still and silver, like a coin dropped in a dream. And then you walk. The land rises beneath your feet gradually, softly. Each step feels lighter than the last. You begin to hear different birds now, sharp, cheerful chirps. Trees with bark that doesn't glisten with slime. Ground that holds your weight without complaining. Dry leaves crunch beneath your sandals. You nearly weep. You set up camp that night under a canopy of stars you hadn't seen in weeks. The sky is clear. The fire roars without sputtering. The wood actually burns. You sleep on high ground and dream of silence. Not empty silence. Peaceful silence. The tribe begins to talk again. Jokes return. So do arguments. Low, tired ones, but normal. Real. You don't mind. You catch yourself smiling more than usual. You even laugh, once loudly, when a beetle flies up your nose mid-sentence and your aunt smacks you with a reed. You hadn't realized how tightly you'd been holding your breath all that time in the swamp. Now it comes easy. The next day you find a flower. Just growing. Not mutated, not glowing, not shaped like a screaming mouth, just a flower. Yellow. Simple. You pluck it. Tuck it behind your ear. Keep walking. By the 5th day, you reach a dry clearing. Wide, sunny, bordered by trees that smell like bark and nothing else. You stop. You set down your pack. Your uncle looks at you. Well? You nod. Here. And so without ceremony, you begin again. Shelters rise, stones are gathered, fires are lit, children draw in the dirt. No spirals, just animals and faces and one very bad attempt at a bear. You don't miss the swamp, but sometimes at night, you remember it. The breathing water, the whispered name, the patterns left behind like riddles, the sickness and the humming, the silence that watched you from behind the cattails. It lives in you now, not as a scar, but as a layer, a damp green thread stitched into your memory. You build new idols, smaller, simpler, no eyes, just shapes. You hum as you work, the tune comes easily, the same one from the dreams. One night, you sit by the fire, staring into the glow, and your cousin, who once vanished, sits beside you in your mind. Just for a second, he smiles, not with a warning, but with peace. And you whisper, "We made it." Now, you stretch out under the stars. The fire's long since burned down to a bed of glowing embers, soft and pulsing like a heartbeat in the dirt. The frogs are far away now, maybe gone, maybe just quiet enough to be forgotten for a while. Your skin is dry for the first time in what feels like seasons. Your legs ache in that good, earned way, like they've carried you out of something that wanted to keep you. You watch the smoke drift upward, slow and straight, until it disappears into the ink of the sky. There are no voices tonight, no groaning water, no breathing in the reeds, only you, and the fire, and the hush of a world not asking for anything right now. You let your breath fall into rhythm with the night. You blink slowly, like the forest does when it exhales. You feel the weight of the journey behind you, not heavy, just present, just there, part of you. And maybe, just maybe, some distant memory of you remains in the swamp, curled in the spiral of a mossy stone, or caught in the echo of that one long hum the trees never really forgot. That's okay. Let it stay there. Let it hum in your sleep. You earned your rest. You survived the damp. You understood the silence. And now you are dry and warm and home. Sweet dreams.